Okay, good day and welcome to this live ConnectWise Mastery Series event. This business management Ask Me Anything event is on sales and marketing today. And if you're not familiar with these Ask Me Anything events, our goal is to answer any of your business management, so mainly PSA and related questions. And today's topic is on sales and marketing. So in PSA, that's that sales module. So anything from marketing campaigns to opportunities and sales orders, and a bit into coding we can answer for you today. So please don't be shy. Use that questions pod on the side of your screen there and ask us any questions you have on sales and marketing throughout this event. And we'll do our best to answer them in real time. And at the end of this event, we have some calls to action. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have additional questions after the event, I have some instructions on where you can go to ask those questions after the event. So without further ado, let's have our speaker introductions. I'm here with my awesome team today.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Johnny McCormick. My current role is a Senior Associate Partner Success Manager here at ConnectWise. Just a little bit about me, based at our headquarters location in Tampa, Florida. Business management solutions, me on the team. Been at ConnectWise a little bit over 10 years now. I have a background within the product support team before transitioning over to the partner success team. Few things that I love to do is cooking, mostly outside on the grill, spending time with the family, and enjoying just consistently working with partners and helping their process and day-to-day within the partner success team.
Thank you so much, Johnny. And I'm Jennifer Ugochukwu. I'm a software training consultant here at ConnectWise. I'm based in Texas, and I'm a business management solutions subject matter expert. I have IT and TSCP experience before joining ConnectWise, so I'm happy to be on this side of the aisle sharing this experience with you on sales and marketing.
All right. And my name is Matt Skirty. I'm a product manager here. So I oversee ConnectWise PSA as well as the PSA end user portal. I too am located in the Tampa headquarters office. I've been with ConnectWise for about 10 years, spent 4 years in support, and then moved over to the product management team. And yeah, that's about it for me.
Thank you, Matt. So now let's get started by prioritizing your questions first. So don't be shy, give it a try and use that questions pod. Ask us anything about sales and marketing in PSA. And we here will do our best to pull up the app if it's applicable and show you exactly where in the app we're referring to when we discuss the answers to your questions on that sales module in PSA. So I'll go ahead and allow at least a minute or two for another question, some questions from the audience to come in. But if the audience is a little shy today, that's okay. We have some questions that we have prepared that we can go over with you as well. So go ahead and use that questions pod and ask us any questions about sales and marketing. All right, so ask those questions as we wait for some questions from the audience on sales and marketing to come in through that questions pod. I'll go ahead and start with one of our pre-configured questions. Why should I start from an opportunity? And this is a question we hear a lot from the ConnectWise community because some partners wonder why they should start from an opportunity. Perhaps it's difficult to get the sales representatives in the system and entering all of their information. Perhaps they just want to start from a quote and let CPQ create that opportunity for them. But it's highly recommended, it is the recommended practice to start from an opportunity because it allows you to have some forecasting information, even as you're in that prospecting and qualification stage with the end user, with your potential customer. So you can have your sales representatives go into PSA and use estimates in the forecast pod to add estimates of the line items they intend to sell to this customer. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here and show you what that looks like. So I am showing you a new opportunity in PSA. And of course, we want to name the opportunity something that is easy for our team to know what this opportunity is about. Then we'll go ahead and select the company that the opportunity pertains to and select the associated contact. So this information will populate. We can, of course, select a type for this opportunity. So once we go into this forecast pod and click Add Estimates, we can add estimates of products we intend to sell to our customer. And these values will appear in reports. And of course, you want to put the status as open. Go ahead and save that. And in the summary pod, the revenue margin information will change. This forecast pod has the estimate of a line item we intend to sell to the customer, and it's not entering new items in our PSA product catalog. So this is really useful so that if you do have hardware you intend to sell to the customer, but you haven't actually purchased it, it's not already in your hardware, you're not adding additional products in your PSA catalog that you haven't even sold yet. And it's also easy for your sales reps to come in here and just create an opportunity that quickly and add line items so that sales managers, finance administrators, and even service managers have visibility into some of the opportunities that are being worked on. You can forecast not only some upcoming costs if you're a finance manager, but if you're a service manager, you can see how many hours of service will need to be prepared to take on this new opportunity that's coming down the pipeline. Of course, you'll want to make sure that your sales stage setup table is set appropriately to represent your sales funnel at the different stages as we go from lead to qualified. So again, when the opportunity is in this qualified stage, it's definitely recommended to use estimates. Once you actually click the quote button, hopefully you have CPQ integrated, you'll be able to create a quote and build out and source your line items like hardware from Edelweiss or whatever vendors you have integrated. And then once that customer signs the quote, those items will be pushed as products in this forecast pod, and then those estimates will be removed. So then the products tab will have all those products once you actually have a customer approval on that quote, assuming you have CPQ integrated with PSA. So that's really it as far as some things I wanted to share about why you should start with an opportunity. And Johnny and Matt, did you want to add on to that? Never be a surprise.
No, I think you covered, the best bits of that. So thank you, Jennifer.
All right, thank you. So I will again go back to our open session here. And again, I want to give an opportunity for the audience to ask a question. So don't be shy. Go ahead and use that questions pod and ask anything about sales and marketing. Did that topic about starting with an opportunity, using the forecast pod, did any of that register or bring up any questions that you might have? You might also want to know what happens next after the opportunity is won. What's that process like? So go ahead and use that questions pod and ask us any question. I'll allow a minute or two, and then we'll just move on to the next question we have prepared if there are no questions from the audience. Okay, I'll go ahead and move on to our next prepared question. And it is on sales orders. Question is, why should I use sales orders? How do they work in that ConnectWise lifecycle process flow? So Matt or Johnny, did you want to share with us?
I can speak on this part, Jennifer. So with sales orders, it's kind of that next funnel piece when you're converting, or like Jennifer just mentioned and went over within her demo, was the, winning the opportunity, and then what's the next step, what's the next stages. So where sales order comes in play is, say you're pushing over those products to the next phase. of the journey and you're needing to order from your vendors, or you need to, check your on-hand account, check for non-inventory items there as well. So the sales order is that kind of next hub to say, hey, if we do need those items, the sales order, once placed on the sales order, you'll move it over to purchasing to receive those items in to your warehouse bin within ConnectWise or ConnectWise instance. That's one instance of it. The next instance is to kind of track what's needed. Sometimes there are service class products that are converted over from the opportunity or labor, and it's in this sense here that's converted over to the sales order. So now you're saying, hey, we already quoted the partner or the client for this amount of hours that's going to take us to, let's give an example of installing, hardware on site for the client. So now you're waiting on the items that's coming in from your vendor. Those are received into your warehouse and then to your warehouse bin count there for the quantity. And now you're pushing over everything from the sales order to a service ticket. So again, that's just one example of a scenario that a sales order comes into play. Another is, moving from an opportunity to a sales order to a project. And you may say, hey, how do I know what's the next journey of a sales order? And it just comes down to the service that you're providing that client or the type of work. So if it's something that's going to be over an extended amount of time, something that's going to take multiple months, let's say hardware, software, labor, then you would go from opportunity to a sales order, receive those items in, then move everything over to a project. If it's more of a one-off job, one installation or install, you'll move that over from an opportunity, sales order, then to a service ticket. And then if it's something that you're charging the client recurring, let's say for Microsoft subscriptions or recurring set of hours and labor, then you'll go from an opportunity, sales order, to an agreement. So just wanted to kind of give from a high level there perspective of how a sales order comes into play after an opportunity and how you direct that next line of traffic or journey from the sales order to the next item for billing.
Yeah, I would say the one last use case we could use here is if we're really just selling some products to the client that doesn't really require any services, right? So let's say they call in and say, hey, we need a new, some new Cat 6 cables. Something happened, it got severed. Can you send out, some cables to us? Where they just want to use you as their distributor to purchase products. They don't want to, order from Amazon or something like that directly. Or if they want a new mouse or keyboard, something like that, where they know, well, you guys could provide them these products. You already have the distributors on your side. So instead of trying to go and find, something themselves, they could just put the request through you. You guys could create the sales order and invoice right from the sales order rather than creating a ticket or a project or anything like that. And then those would flow through to your shipping and you'd ship them out and you'd keep all of that right from the sales order. So if no services are really required, that would be another use case for having the sales order spinning off of the opportunity. And you have that create invoice button right in the toolbar there of the sales order, which is really nice. So you could just quickly create it rather than having to go into invoicing and actually search for the sales order to then invoice for it.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that the great thing about using sales orders is that it gets those products off the opportunity onto the sales order where they generate purchasing demand. So you can immediately start that purchasing life cycle if you do have to go through your vendors to fulfill this sales order from the customer. You also can't bill from an opportunity, so creating that sales order allows you to create that invoice as Matt demonstrated. All right, so let's go back to our PowerPoint here. I'll pause for just a moment again and see if any questions have come in from the audience. Okay, so just a reminder, if you do have a question, use the questions pod and type in your question and submit it so that we can see it. All right, so I do see a question. What is the link between an opportunity and CPQ? Okay, that's a great question. So let's return back to our opportunity in PSA, and I can show you. In short, once you have PSA and CPQ integrated, CPQ is able to read the CRM data you have in PSA, including the opportunity, the companies and contacts there. Also, your product catalog can also be integrated with CPQ. So if you are creating that opportunity, as I mentioned previously, the best practice is to start with the estimates before you actually quote the customer. But once you're ready to quote the customer, all you need to do from the opportunity, in the opportunity toolbar, just click the quote button. There is a little bit of setup you need to do in CPQ so that this quote button will actually open your CPQ instance. But if you click it, it will actually open a CPQ screen. And once that screen opens, I can share that as well. Okay, so in this example, I actually happen to open this quote showing an existing quote, but once you actually click that quote button, you'll see the new quote screen where you can see a list of all of your CPQ templates, your CPQ quote form templates that you've created, and create a new quote. So once you create that new quote, it will pull in all the CRM information like the company contact and shipping information from the opportunity. So yeah, that's how CPQ is linked to the opportunity. And then once the opportunity is won, so with CPQ, you'll of course source all of your hardware from your vendors, whether that's from Utilize or from CXML punch-out sites like Amazon or Dell, or from a quote import from your vendors. Those products will go here. And then once that quote is won, they'll actually go on the win screen. And let me just see if I can pull up an existing quote that's already won here. So in the win screen of the quote, you can either perform electronic orders or export your one quote to Excel, but you can also, from the actions dropdown, update the opportunity details. So in this instance, I have electronic ordering on, which is showing a little bit different options there in the win screen, but you essentially, once that quote is won, you want to update the opportunity. And the key thing here when you're on the opportunity details screen in CPQ is to group by line item. So this will set those products that you source here from your vendors as actual products in that PSA opportunity once you click save and update the opportunity, because here we have our various tabs in that quote, and it's just showing that the product type for new products added to those various quote tabs. And I don't want to get into too much CPQ detail here today because next week is actually on quoting, but just to give a high level overview, these tab settings and these manage items, PSA formerly known as manage, these items will be pushed over from the quote to your PSA opportunity and your PSA product catalog. So hopefully that tells you the full link between the opportunity and CPQ. One additional thing I can mention here, and I brought it up for a moment earlier, was that the electronic order option is available if you want to create that sales order as well from CPQ. So we already talked about the importance of the sales order, but you can also generate that purchasing demand by initiating electronic ordering from CPQ. So again, next week's Ask Me Anything is on quoting, so it'll go into much more detail on CPQ, but I hope that does answer your question. Thank you so much for asking that. All right. So, are there any additional questions about sales and marketing? Please use that questions pod and type in and submit your questions to us, and we'll do our best to answer them. Okay, as we wait for additional questions, I'll go ahead and continue forward to one of the pre-existing questions we had. And Matt, would you like to start us off with this question?
Yeah, so using estimates and opportunities. So Jennifer kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is what you're going to want to use when pretty much prior to getting your CPQ quote set up, as you're having discussions with the customer, you're adding on to that opportunity for various types of estimates, maybe considering some types of labor and hours, things like that. But on the opportunity in the forecast pod, you're actually able to, instead of adding a product, you add a estimate. So for things that are still uncertain and you're kind of just trying to understand, what type of work is going to be involved, how much work is going to be involved, you'll add an estimate on there for let's say you're estimating it might be about 10 hours of on-site labor, right? So you could add this estimate in for the time being, and then once you do build your CPQ quote out, that's where you can come in and actually add your service class products to the quote, right? Because then that would flow in, and so that could then flow into your projects and create your different phases and things like that for you to actually bill for. So the estimates is really something you want to use up front as you're building out the opportunity prior to creating the actual quote itself.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, we have a question. When adding the estimate, where did you input the estimated time? So Jennifer, if you want to click back into that estimate. So really what we're doing here is it's not based on hours. You're really adding in a revenue amount here. So that would be something you would likely have to calculate for the estimate itself. But when you create the CPQ quote and you're adding your service class products, you can enter in a quantity for that service class product. And you would typically have that service class product set up with a unit of measure of hours, right? So that's technically where you would add that hours amount in for the time.
Right. Johnny, did you want to add additional information on that, or would you like me to get into the product catalog to show a service class product?
I'm sorry. No, I said, I guess, yeah, we can head over to the product catalog. Matt covered the estimate section pretty well there.
Right. So one great thing about estimates is that your sales reps don't have to go into the product catalog to create these products. Hopefully the procurement manager or operations manager has gone and created these ahead of time. So the sales rep doesn't need to, when they're in the opportunity, know exactly the correct product ID to add to that product. Maybe you have some kind of, you're using something in CPQ to make it easier for them to source those items. But essentially, you'll want to pay attention to the fact that the product classes in PSC determine how those products behave once they're converted from the opportunity to the sales order and to that final item. That final item could be the sales order itself, as Matt mentioned earlier, like if they're just purchasing hardware, or it could be, as Johnny mentioned, could be converting to an agreement So those agreement class products would need to be added to that quote, eventually pushed back to the opportunity, and then converted over through the subsequent objects in that ConnectWise lifecycle. Okay, so it looks like that is all the time we have. We're nearing the end of our time today. So I just want to wrap this up with some final calls to actions. So I know you might not have come up with tons of questions live, but you might have additional questions at the very end. Just know that you can stay connected in the virtual community from the ConnectWise University homepage, the community drop down, and navigate to the ConnectWise virtual community. We have virtual communities for business management, ASIO, hyper automation, and more. But if you navigate to business management, you'll see this thread that we've created so that you can get additional information about this event and others, and register for additional events or ask us any questions. Engage with the virtual community. It's a great place to speak directly with other TSPs like you and with the ConnectWise experts like the product team, partner success, and education. So with that said, feel free to use this QR code to register for upcoming Ask Me Anything sessions. The next session is on quoting, so if you want to get more into CPQ, please register for that session. And lastly, just want to say thank you so much for joining us live. We really appreciate your time, and we know your time is valuable. So thank you for joining us to have your questions answered. Matt and Johnny, would you like to have any closing words?
Thank you all for your time and your patience today and joining in on this session.
Yeah, just thank everybody for showing up. Have any questions, please reach out.